the $3 masking tape?
Hey everyone, JP and Fabian here with Brand Ranks. We tested 12 different painter's tapes and submitted them to a barrage of tests. We tested their performance in metal, wood, and 3 different wall textures using a variety of application methods. We also tested their tensile strength, peel strength, and adhesive residue. From baseboards to crown molding and doors, the one thing they have in common is you need to mask them when you're painting your walls. You see, when you forego masking, it can actually take you longer to paint, and at the end, it might even cost you more. So to avoid this, you should always get some painter's tape. For our first test, we will be using a calibrated force gauge sensor and a manual test stand to pull apart the tapes and record their maximum tensile strength. We repeated this test 3 times per tape and calculated the average for the final results. We tried to get all the tapes to be 1.4 inches, but some we only found 1.9 inches. So in order to have a level playing field, we prepared each material sample with ASTM standards as a guidance. For our first contender, we have the well-known green frog tape with a price of $8.88 or 5 cents per foot. They changed the painter's tape industry by creating a tape that sealed the edges with paint block technology. How do they do this, you ask? By treating the tape with a powdery polymer that reacts and creates a gel when it comes in contact with water. This gel creates a barrier and prevents intrusion of paint. You thought that packaging was all for looks. Well, it is, but it's also there to keep out moisture and keep this from happening. Green frog tape comes in with a very impressive 13.35 pounds of force and tensile strength. For our next contender, we have the delicate surface frog tape with a price of $8.98 or 5 cents per foot. This is just a variation of its green brother, but it was made for surfaces such as newly painted walls. The delicate frog tape came in at 12.35 pounds of force. Next up, we have the Scotch Original Blue Painter's Tape with a price of $7.48. This is the painter's tape that we all grew up using. As a matter of fact, 3M even went as far as trademarking the color of this tape. So every other non-Scotch blue painter's tape you see out there will have a different shade. The OG Scotch had a tensile strength of 16.58 pounds of force. Impressive. The next Scotch tape we will be testing is the Ultra Sharp Lines with paint block technology. Currently priced at $9.98 or 7 cents per foot. Yikes! This is 3M's response to frog tape, and it claims to block paint better. We'll see about that. The Ultra Sharp Lines is made of a very stretchy material, thus had an average tensile strength of 5.90. Next up, we have the Scotch Sharp Lines with a price of $9.48. It's made from a very similar material than the original, but with paint block technology. The average max tensile strength comes in at 15.63 pounds of force. The Scotch Delicate Surface comes in at $8.98 or 5 cents per foot. It appears to have a very similar material to frog tape Delicate Surface. And it shows because the tensile strength is 12.68 pounds of force. For the next 3 contenders, we have Scotch Exterior, Rough, and Contractor Grade tapes, pricing in at $8.78, $7.27, and $3.98 respectively. As their name suggests, these are for special applications. But is there anything really special about them? Can you utilize other tapes for these applications? We'll find out. The Scotch Exterior and Rough Surfaces had 5.73 and 14.45 pounds of force respectively. The Contractor Grade had an average max of 9.72. Next up, we have the Duck Brand General Purpose with a price of $5.99 and Duck Brand Clean Release with a price of $3.92, both for the 1.88 inch roll. They had an average maximum tensile strength of 11.30 and 16.20 pounds of force respectively. Finally, we have the Harbor Freight Stick Tech Painter's Tape. It has a very affordable price of $6.49 for the 1.88 inch roll. Stick Tech comes in with a very high tensile strength of 16 pounds of force. The blue painter's tapes appear to be the strongest. The green frog tape comes in right at the middle of the pack. Both tapes intended for delicate surfaces come in pretty close to each other, and the masking tapes were below average. The Ultra Sharp Lines and the Scotch Exterior appear to be made of the same stretchy material, leading to a very low tensile strength but high flexibility. Next up, we will be testing each tape's adhesive strength. In order to do that, we prepared samples using a 1.5 by 3 inch aluminum plate and cleaning it with isopropyl alcohol. We then proceeded to carefully adhere the tapes to the plate. In order to ensure a fair comparison, we adhere each tape with equal amounts of pressure utilizing an ASTM standard roller. This 2 kilogram roller features a rubber shore hardness of 80 and prevents you from exerting additional downward pressure aside from its own weight. This is done by being loosely held on its axis. Once again, we repeated this test 3 times per tape and calculated the average peel strength for the final result based on ASTM guidance. Frock tape comes in with a 1.56 pounds of force in adhesive strength. The delicate frock tape had an average peel strength of 1.21 pounds of force. Scotch Original has 1.34 pounds of force of peel strength. Ultra Sharp Lines comes in at a very low average of 1.02 for its adhesive strength. 1.29 pounds of force for Scotch Sharp Lines. Delicate Surfaces comes in at 1.17 pounds of force. Scotch Exterior, rough, and contractor grade tapes had a whopping 2.49, 1.59, and 1.50 pounds of force respectively. Duck Brand General Purpose and Clean Release came in at 1.28 and 1.66 respectively. Stick Tech had a very impressive 1.97 pounds of force of adhesive strength. As expected, the exterior tape had the strongest adhesive, while the 2 tapes made for delicate surface had a low adhesive strength. Once again, the frock tape was in the middle of the pack, and Ultra Sharp Lines had a very low adhesive strength. Let's see if that comes into play on our next test. We want to know how well these tapes hold up to the outdoors, and if there's a benefit of using exterior tape as opposed to regular masking tape. We applied each of the tapes to a semi-rough texture wall and painted over them with flat black paint. We then exposed them to the heat, rain, and a 2-year-old for 1 week. Just kidding on that last one. While we wait on that, let's get on with the next test. Here we applied 3 different wall textures to our test panel: fine, medium, and heavy orange peel texture. Afterwards, we applied 3 coats of white paint and waited 1 week for it to cure. We then proceeded to lightly apply 96 strips of painter's tapes for the 9 tests we would be performing. This took quite a bit of time, so if you want to support this channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming videos. Our first panel has a fine orange peel texture, and we utilize a brush and apply black flat paint with light pressure parallel to the tapes. Scotch Original, Rough Surfaces, General Contractor, and Stick Tech had various paint intrusions and performed below average. Delicate Surface and Clean Release were decent, but did not have very sharp lines. Scotch Sharp Lines had some minor intrusions, but very good overall. Green Frock Tape was exceptional, with hardly any defects. Frock Tape Delicate performed very well, but had some minor intrusions. General Purpose Duck Brand Tape was very impressive. Scotch Ultra Sharp Lines did a great job. Scotch Exterior Surfaces? Well, let's just say don't use it on interior walls. As you can see, all tapes perform fairly well on the light texture with a paintbrush, but there's a clear distinction between both frock tapes and the competition. The original painter's tape seemed to have struggled here. For the medium orange peel texture, we can see that most of them perform about the same, with notable exceptions such as both frock tapes that had above average results. Scotch Original struggled in this test as well. For the heavy texture, the Scotch Rough Surface was expected to outperform the competition, but was only marginally better than the average. The Duck Brand Clean Release really impressed on this test, while both frock tapes somewhat struggled. One important note here though was that the Delicate Surface frock tape was the only one to cleanly release from the wall without pulling paint or texture from it. Moving on to a roller application with a fine texture, once again, the frock tapes perform extremely well. Duck Brand Clean Release, Scotch Delicate Surface, and Stick Tech performed very well overall. The Scotch Original and Exterior Surfaces struggled substantially with this test. Comparatively with the brush application, it appears a roller is a lot more forgiving. This can be due to the bristles breaking that edge seal of the tapes and allowing paint intrusions. For the medium texture, the green frock tape performed way better than the competition, and the Scotch Ultra Fine Lines failed to create a line, much less an ultra sharp one. Once again, the Duck Brand Clean Release had very impressive results. Lastly, for the heavy texture, the Scotch Rough Surface and Original completely failed. The Duck Brand Clean Release has had a very impressive showing, and once again the frock tapes have the cleanest lines. For our next test, we apply each tape to a plexiglass to see if they leave any adhesive residue. Once again, we utilize the 2 kilogram roller to ensure equal pressure. Given that the Frock Tape's polymer only activates with moisture, we will apply a damp towel over the tapes and come back after 1 hour. While we wait on that, let's check out those tapes that have been outside for 7 days. The 4 tapes did not appear to change much from being outside, aside from ripping off the paint from the wall as expected. This is why you should always remove your tape as soon as possible. The rough surface actually performed decently in this test. The Scotch Ultra Sharp Lines has various places where the tape appears to have lifted, but the general contractor's adhesive seems to have really stuck to the wall, causing it to pull away paint and some of the texture. Although the Scotch exterior surface felt identical as the previous test, it still performed poorly. The Frock Tapes don't appear to have been affected beyond the expected. Okay, it's been about an hour now, so let's remove these tapes from the plexiglass and remove the covering. As you can barely see, most tapes left very little adhesive residue with the exception of the Frock Tapes. These lines are that gel that forms by hydrating that special polymer that these Frock Tapes have. To simulate spray painting on metal surfaces, we prepped a galvanized sheet of steel by cleaning it with alcohol. And then we applied all the tapes with little to no pressure. Once again, we utilized the 2 kilogram roller to ensure even pressure. We then applied 3 even coats of flat black spray paint. After waiting 10 minutes, we peeled off the tapes, and as you can see from these results, all the tapes seem to have performed very well and are acceptable to do the job on a smooth surface. We wanted to put these tapes to the ultimate test and see how they performed on a very rough wood surface, such as what you would find in a budget fence post. We applied all the tapes against the grain and adhered them with the same amount of pressure utilizing the 2 kilogram roller. We then proceeded to apply one heavy coat of paint. We expected the Scotch exterior or the rough surfaces to perform exceptionally well here, but they performed just like the others. The only noteworthy mention here is once again the green Frock Tape. Although it had various inclusions, it prevented paint intrusions on various areas. Wood is just very porous, and the painter's tapes just need a little help. So after prepping the tapes, just like before, we applied caulking. More specifically, all-purpose acrylic latex caulk. Make sure it's the clear latex paintable one. The all silicone one is not meant for this. To see the real difference, we applied it to one side of each tape. After a fresh coat of black paint, voila, beautiful crisp lines. Although not perfect, this made a huge improvement to the alternative, and it's something you should consider when working with a rough surface. So, what about an interior wall? Should you use caulking? Well, take a look and you decide. In order to test this, we applied all the tapes to the 3 different surfaces and used some of that caulking around the edges. After a fresh coat of paint and 10 minutes later, look at these results. Amazing, but light texture is easy. Let's try medium. Very impressive across the board. Now for the ultimate test that all the tapes failed by themselves, the rough surface. These results just speak for themselves. This simple trick allows you to get great quality lines with just about any painter's tape. So, which tape do we recommend? Well, it depends. If you're on a budget and you have a lot to mask, we recommend you go with the Duck brand Clean Release. It had a high tensile strength with a strong adhesive and was up there in the rankings every time. If sharp lines are absolutely critical or the surface you're painting is rough, then we must recommend the green Frock Tape. There's just no competition. You can also go ahead and apply some caulking to any of the tapes you desire to get a professional look. If you're masking a freshly painted wall or you're working with delicate furniture, we suggest you go with the Frock Tape Delicate Surfaces. If this video helped you out and you're wanting to see more product testing like this, please subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps a small channel like ours tremendously. And as always, links to all the products we tested are down below in the description. Now that you've painted your walls, you may need to put up some shelves or a TV. And to do that, you need to find those studs on the wall. So click on this video to find out which stud finder is best.